Welcome to Grove of the Gods. This is Morgan Hornman, and I am joined today by Kathy Potter, and we want to learn all about her. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's great being here.
Thank you. Thank you. So if I remember correctly, you are over in Ohio?
Correct. Yeah, Columbus area.
Awesome. Okay. So we've got your bio in the bottom. If you could just give a quick overview, introduction, and then we can roll into stuff. But just kind of tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, I actually just launched my holistic wellness company, Abundance Consulting, at the end of September. So I offer currently life coaching, spiritual life coaching, which is really where my passion is. And I also just finished up my yoga training. So I'll be offering my yoga classes, Hatha and Vinyasa yoga at the beginning of the year. And
cool.
I have thanks. I'm excited, really excited. And I have, I'm actually a Weight Watchers coach as well. So I'm putting that into action, helping with the wellness side of things. And just really as far as my spirituality, aside from that, I'm really just new, I would say the last 5-6 years or so, maybe, to the whole paganism thing. I grew up in a traditional church atmosphere, different denominations, everybody's ministers on both sides. And so this has been a really important journey for me, coming into that, getting out of the corporate world and really focusing on my purpose and my path. So this last few months, this last year has really pointed me inward. And so just really excited to be finally on that and being aligned more with my higher self.
Awesome. It is amazing. I was talking to my partner last night, and I'm like, I don't want to do anything that takes me out of alignment.
Completely.
Going out of alignment with what I want to be and what I want to do hurts. It doesn't feel good.
Exactly. And for so many of us, it's the corporate, right? The traditional. I've made myself do it. We have ourselves do it. Society says do it the 9 to 5, have your coffee, get your Starbucks. Nothing against Starbucks. Love it. But it was as I got older, I'll be 50 a week from today. And
Happy birthday in a week.
Thank you. Solstice. I'm a solstice baby.
That's so cool.
So, So I really looked inward, and I think so many of us finally are like, listen, this doesn't feel, and I can't live like that. And that's so important, that self-compassion that so many of us don't have. And again, society doesn't talk about that, doesn't support that. So I think that's wonderful that you're honoring that.
You really nailed it. It's about resonance. And that one of the tarot readers I watch on YouTube, as well as a lot of other people talk about, if it doesn't feel good, don't do it. If it doesn't resonate with you, don't do it.
And it seems real basic, but how many of us really struggle with that?
Well, a lot of society is geared towards, and we're getting deep early. Let's go for it. A lot of society is right. We're going deep quick. It's geared towards denial of self.
Yep.
With the idea of putting yourself down so that you can help someone else up. Like the worker boss situation, worker owner. And I'm not going to get that political. It really is. Our society is very geared towards the sublimation of the self and removing the obligations to yourself and ignoring the obligations to yourself. And they are obligations. They're not wants.
I'm going to piggyback off that and go a little deeper. So this may be
absolutely
one that people need to have a beer with. Okay.
This is what people want to see. This is what people want to see.
Well, good, because we're giving it to. I got my Krampus sweatshirt on. I'm good to go. So happy late Krampusnacht, everybody. I love Krampus. But piggybacking off of that, one of the things I went through looking at my belief system is I guess I was texting a friend, like, what is going on? I'm all over the place. And it was really the death of my compliant self that she said. We were brought up, and again, not to get too down on organized religion, but I'm sorry. There's just a lot bad that I've had. And we were brought up in the church, and you do this and you do that. And we've talked about it before, the hymns and everything. It's all about, like you said, being less, being compliant, giving. And then now we're in this whole, how do you recharge this, self-compassion, the self-care movement, finally trying the mental health side of it. But that's what I went through, is the death of my compliant self, and understanding there was nothing wrong with me ever. Yeah. Right. I had a voice, I used it, but like you were saying, you are not taught to do that unless it's supporting something else. Right.
You are not supposed, being proud of yourself and feeling accomplished is a bad thing. And that in itself is stupid, to be blunt, because it removes all actual inclination to move forward, other than some sort of rote mindless thing that actually doesn't give you any joy and doesn't actually feed you in any way. Yet again, feeding other people.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So that's why I've become, I hate to say anti-corporate, but right now it's so raw and so fresh for me. I'm anti-corporate. Yeah. Love my husband. He's in, a lot of people are. It's just that I couldn't do that, like we talked about, to be true to myself, to honor my feelings. And also, I remember, I don't know if I had talked about this before, but my mom said to me once, very sweet woman, but I do this and this and this for the church, and does that sound prideful? And I said, no, Mom, it's a resume. But that thinking of pride and self, and it's like, but yet she would never say, she's never in my life said to me, that sounds prideful. I'm so proud of you for doing that. You know what I mean? But it's like, it goes back to what you were saying with the, limited and not limitless.
And honestly, I will take this deeper.
Let's go for it.
A lot of the misogyny that is inbred into that thinking, because not only should you, as a female, a woman, sorry, I don't like using the F word, but you are supposed to, no matter what, want to bear children and bear as many as your womb can push out. And in that, all of your life should be subjugated to the needs of your children and their father, and then whatever obligations that you can give to the church.
Right. And you give tithe, 10%, right? And you have to be, and that is your connection, and you become your real woman by doing that, and you're supposed to identify with that. And you're bad, you're wrong if you're not like, this is great, I feel so fulfilled, because guess what? Not all of us do, and not all the time.
Exactly. And I'm a very odd bird. I grew up in the 70s going to protest in Chicago for the ERA. So much has changed and so little has changed.
I feel that. I feel it.
There's just so much that is bred into our thinking that is about reducing us, reducing other people in our eyes because they don't do what we do. And and if someone has done something bad in their past, I've heard people say that they deserve to be homeless.
Wow.
Right? And while absolutely we should not being what's the correct word? My brain went unhoused. Is not a state that anybody should have to go through. But for people to say things like that, and that's actually an indication of how society thinks about people. Right. It's that whole translating the burn and damnation fire bullshit over, and it doesn't apply.
And I think a great, in a way that I kind of understand that now, and again, this has just been within the last year, maybe really honed in the last few months since I've been, going through all this and my transformation. I've realized that when I was the most judgmental, and I'm not going to lie, I can be very judgmental. And that comes from my upbringing, and especially in the church. You have to fit in the box, and we have talked about that before. But what I want to say about that is, when I've been the most judgy, I've realized I'm feeling vulnerable. I'm feeling no self-judgmental toward myself. And I've noticed in the short time that I've really worked on that and really let that out and done shadow work and everything, sound therapy, all that, counseling, I've realized that the compassion to yourself extends to others. So that's why I keep saying wow, because it's like, I wasn't brought up that way, luckily, but also when you have more compassion, you can, I'll use the old trope or the old saying of put yourself in someone else's shoes, but really you don't even have to you open up. And you have a different lens on, and maybe, I don't know. So I really think that a lot of this has to go to compassion and really getting in touch with our higher selves. And like you said before, aligning, honoring feelings. And we don't do that.
It really is. It takes a long time to learn to not let them beat you with a 2x4 anymore.
And unfortunately, you get to a place where I almost burn out. I mean, I almost had a breakdown. I literally I was having cold sweats. I'm prone to anxiety anyway, OCD, all that fun stuff. But I finally, I was in the military, I was in the Army, National Guard, and I was just brought up, you walk it off, soldier. Plus with my type A personality, it was always just push it in, fake it till you make it, which I think is so detrimental, but all those things. And it's just been so amazing to be around people such as yourselves and in the yoga space with its spirituality and the mind-body connection. And then, of course, being around coaching, because the whole thing with coaching, I know not a lot of people may know about coaching. It's not where we follow you around. We ask powerful questions and say, Morgan, what does that look like to you? What does that feel like? What would be your idea? So we help you go through that. You have the answers. You are the expert. So, and that's what I think is so important, and being our own best friend and all of that. But I just think that it's so indicative of how far off base we are as a society. But I'm a very positive person, so I know that we can do that. But in this space, we have to reach out.
What you're talking about is greatly related to that whole, what we were talking about earlier in that subjugation of self, because we're taught by society to cut off how our body is communicating with us. We are taught to gaslight ourselves into being indestructible and being able to do everything and anything because, well, that's what is required. Because I can't. Yep. I have to push on because that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, don't sleep. Keep going.
Right. No, you're supposed to sleep. You're supposed to enjoy life. You're supposed to sit back and watch comedies. You're supposed to walk through the woods and look at the bugs and the leaves. And you're supposed to take in all of the things, not just subjugate your needs and the things that make you happy to appease a higher thing.
Right. The man. Sorry.
Yeah.
But, and
we'll go capitalism or we can go higher being, whichever way you want to go. It's kind of the both. So,
but and what's so, I've had to go through that. I actually had to say to myself, you have to live your life, because my life was my work. I tied my worth to so much, the numbers on the scale, how much was in my bank account, blah, blah, blah. And I've had to do so much work on, I am worthy, I'm safe. I have index cards up all over here in my office on things I'm working on. And that is so important to me to say, loving on my cats, letting myself cry at a movie, letting myself grieve, letting myself not be in control, honoring my feelings, not walking it off, not faking it, but being a human being, feeling it, and being vulnerable. And that's part of it.
Allowing your own authenticity is such an amazing thing. When you can embrace who you actually are, because a lot of us go through, it's a fight and it's a climb to get that definition, because there are a lot of folks, especially within the pagan path, full of people who have been through traumatic experiences and have learned coping mechanisms that have not served them well, even though they may have served them in the first 4 seconds of the invention of the coping mechanism, because it made the world safer. But unfortunately, those no longer work, and we have to learn about those. And part of getting through that rebirth is about learning to feel, acknowledge, and know what your authentic self is.
And that it's okay. We talked about openness before, and, you're traumatized. And I know that trauma is on a continuum, but for us, it feels real no matter what happens, and that we can't, I can't always wear this and feel okay with it. And that's part of my issue too. But, Krampus is a big thing for me. I love that. And it's part of the German culture, and it's celebrated all over Europe. But here, I had family members like, what's with Krampus? And I'm thinking I should have said, well, you have to accept the dark and the light. But, but like you were saying, you're part of what happens to us, and not only for faith, but just who we are as a person, if we're different. And it could be, I'm very, obviously, very out there. I'm loud. I'm happy. But I've been told to shrink who I was. I'm intimidating because I'm positive. And for people that aren't that way, I'm a bit much. So for part of my journey recently was, again, getting my voice back, being okay with that, coming out and saying to people, yeah, I'm pagan. I do candle magic. And I have to still be careful because, but it's one of those, I shouldn't have to be careful. I should just be able to be out like all my Christian friends and family members and just be able to say that, because really it's not that different from what they're doing. But again, shrinking to fit, but there's nothing wrong with you. And being authentic, again, aligning with your true purpose, your true self, is very powerful, and loving yourself is so important to that.
Absolutely. And it's the shadow work as well as the embracing of the light within you. And it has to be a balance as you move forward through that. Because a lot of us, I have a saying here at Feywood that pretty much everyone that comes to my rituals and to Feywood is here to change. They're all seeking growth. They're all seeking change. They are seeking, and we'll just call it healing.
And that's so important. Healing's a great word.
And that really identifies a majority of the pagan community. Because a lot of us, unless you were raised pagan, we're here because we didn't fit in anywhere else. And this is what resonates with us. We found it through trial and error. We found it through suffering and a lot of antagonism, mockery, and a lot of hard work and effort.
And you almost have to have a secret handshake, don't you? I can usually get like a vibe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I've had people too that are similar, in similar beliefs. They've kind of got a vibe. So when I've, come out of the non-Christian, and I'd be like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm pagan. They're like, oh my God, I kind of thought maybe you were. And I'm not always wearing, Krampus stuff, but,
Right.
but still, it's like you get that vibe, but it's almost like you have to have before you just say it because of that.
Hey, everybody. I wanted to say thank you very much for watching. I hope you're enjoying. I'm really enjoying doing these interviews. If you'd like to be a guest on our show, please go to GOTG Live and you can fill out a form there and send it to us to say what kind of stuff you want to talk about. And there's a process, and we'll set up an appointment. We'll do a screening interview on the video. Then we'll do a full length one where we just kind of sit and talk, have a conversation like this for an hour, hour and a half. And then I'll go do this. So if you'd like to be on, please send us a message, leave a comment below, share, like, do all the things, help us get engagement, help us spread the word so other folks can enjoy this. Kind of think this is important for folks to see. And like I said, if you'd like to be a part of it, please feel free to send us a message. You can do so on Facebook as well as at Grove of the Gods. Find us there. I'm Morgan Hornman. Thank you very much for watching. May the Lord and Lady be ever in your hearts. Praise be to Pan, and have an amazing day. Talk to you soon. Thank you so much for watching. Right. So we've kind of alluded to it. Tell me about your path. Tell me about your journey to where you are. Religiously or however you want to approach it. But how did you get, because a lot of the people that are going to be watching these are people that are new to the path and are looking for inspiration and or have been on the path and are looking for representation.
Gotcha.
And alignment to see other people that are like them and hear their stories and go, hey, that's part of that same thing I went through. Yeah. And that's really important for
completely. You have to have that support. It's got to be okay. We've got to have that. And a lot of, the Facebook groups and everything, that's very helpful. But my journey has been, like I said, minister's daughter, very organized religion. Now, my mom was a minister's daughter as well. Very strict Nazarene. There's not a whole lot of Nazarene around, but they were the whole, you couldn't go to movies, you couldn't dance kind of thing. She met my dad, who had been in a gang. Now, this was in the 60s, who had a really rough life, divorced parents and all that. And he felt the calling to be a minister, which is ironic because I have a calling to do spiritual work. So that's also part of my journey. But very different people, but she was his rock. She supported that. And they were together for 40 years until he died at 61 of cancer, which has now been like 17 years ago. So I really miss him. But part of what is really interesting about my journey has been he was a philosophy major and a religion minor. Okay. He grew up with his father had been a psychiatrist before my grandfather became a minister. So they have more of an open view of things. It wasn't, so he was very instrumental in me being able to think open. And then college and stuff. I think I shared with you, I once had a conversation with him about if you believe that God, quote unquote, is an omnipotent, omniscient being, why is it you say he, and why do you, kind of challenging, because that's what you do in philosophy 101, right? And his response to me, I guess now I really see it coming through in what I do and when I work with people and just meet people. He said, basically, I talk to them and what they need. If they believe in a male God, I'm going to talk to them. And a lot of the people in these small communities, whatever, a lot of people believe that. So that's where I'm going to make the most impact. And I didn't totally get it. I kind of thought he was a sellout. But now, all these years later, I'm embracing that more, and I didn't realize until recently that I do that, but I don't, I really do. When I work with someone as a spiritual coach, I need you to believe in something higher, even if it's your higher self, Or if you want to say God, I'm okay with it now. I still get a because of my, experiences.
Yeah.
But I'm a big goddess person. I think I've showed you one of my goddesses here. I'm a big
gorgeous.
goddess person, goddess oracle. I love being out in nature. Whatever, I need you to believe in that to call it in, because it's hard. It's hard work to get through all that. So so basically just the organized religion, college kind of opened me up more, but really within the last 5 years, it's having friends that were doing pagan Wicca stuff, reading books, just kind of getting more and more immersed, dipping your toe into this and that. There's a place called the Magical Druid here in Columbus. There's some different places that you just, oh, that's interesting. I'll go check that out. And really, I went to my first ritual for the last full moon ceremony. We were at a park in the daylight, and she had the knife, the athame, as we talked about before. And it was my first time that I had something real witchy. And it was out to everybody, and I was part of it. I smiled the whole damn time. I must have looked like a crazy idiot because people were looking, and I loved it because it was so outside of what I would ever have done. But if my dad would have been okay, but if my mom knew, I was so enjoying it. I can't even tell you. I was smiling the whole time. They probably like, who in the world is this person? But it was so amazing to me. It connected to me. I want to do more of that. But it was just, they had the moon water, so we could set intentions. It just was so amazing. And I can't tell you how a part of me and how true that was to me. And, doing candle magic. I'm so really, what I would say is, I've always said about any religion, if it recharges you, it's no one else's business. And really you don't have to have it doesn't have to be like, you got to go to church, you got to go,
Right.
You're part of the universe. You can do it anywhere. So I don't really know all the different wheels of this and that, but you know what? I like that I can dip my toe and I can get as Yuletide as I want, or I can step back and I can do my candle magic and I can get as witchy as I want, so to speak, or I can. So that's what I love about it, is that I can grab other people and do it, or I can practice solitary a lot, which is what I do. So that's really what I love, is, again, honoring my feelings and where I am and not feeling pigeonholed, because that's so not where I can be.
I totally understand that. I was raised, very weird religious background, but the main one that won was Unitarian Universalist. And so I was raised to steal from everybody.
I gotcha.
Pick and choose your path from everything that's out there and make what works for you and makes you feel better. And what connects you with the everything. And that's really kind of the direction I went with it. And it really, the other competitors were Christian Scientists, Catholicism, and Disciples of Christ. So it was a very
That's an interesting dichotomy there of
so my grandmother was Christian Scientist and her family was Christian Scientist, and they were believers in no medical treatment, laying on hands, the whole works. You had to deal with a practitioner to have any kind of healing or anything like that.
Gotcha.
Which Disciples of Christ was just kind of weird, and that was my grandfather's. And then my parents were Unitarian, and then eventually Unitarian and Universalists joined together. And then my stepmother was Catholic, and then I went to Catholic high school. So it's a very interesting mix. And ultimately, the fun part is that I rejected Christianity, and so I've never looked back. I take that back. There were times when I was a very impressionable young man who made the mistake of developing crushes on fundamentalist faith.
Doesn't that happen?
One or two actually
Yeah.
got me into a church. But
Things that
was
we
it.
do for love, lust, or whatever. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
we've all been
But
there. We've been there.
it was well before I got sober, so it doesn't count.
It doesn't. But I'm glad that you mentioned your UU affiliation, because that's kind of where I started, ironically. I'm glad you mentioned that. I forgot. It's been a long journey.
Right on.
But I went to a church. I went to a UU church, and I loved it. And, there were homosexual couples holding hands. And my mom would have fallen out of her seat, plotzed herself, she just, but again, it was just so open. I loved it. It was just normal to me.
Right.
It felt normal to me. And I was like, this is it. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because it really did help me. And when I started doing my pagan stuff, or looking into like doing those rituals, I actually looked at UU, and because they do have some groups. Now, again, there's still a smaller thing, and you have to, connect with certain people, which is unfortunate.
Right.
But
And the UU Cups groups are definitely a boon to the pagan community, because it is a way for us to find each other. And there are quite a few groups that are sponsored across the nation. And the one in Indianapolis has been around for a long time, and they do some good work, and it is very helpful to the community to have that there. But yet again, you have to know that it exists to be able to find it.
Right.
And
the social justice is really big there, which is so important, I think, also because traditional religions, it's really pet projects. You know what I mean? But social justice is completely different feel.
There really is, because from my personal perspective, the difference between the two boils down to ego. Because people have connections and pet projects that they want to boost up.
I see it.
Where social justice folks like us want everybody to be risen up.
We're love that. Doing this. It all ends up being political somehow if it's not really authentic. Again, going back to that, there's a lot of constant threads here. Right.
And I don't want to deny the authenticity and the service of folks who do put their name at the top, because they deserve the accolade for their hard work.
Yeah, but again, it's important though, because it's part of people's journey to, if they really want to, like you mentioned before, really do the work and really get there. What's your beliefs, and what are you really tying your worth to? And you know what? They're little minor. No one's perfect. You're not going to be perfect in that journey. Absolutely. Because we're human. But I saw a great thing, and I posted it on my Abundance Consulting website. It's, your soul knows what it wants. Your human gets in the way. Damn that human, because your soul wants it, and you've got all this stuff that you got to go through. It's just, but it's very freeing when you know that. I'm getting in my own way. How do I stop it?
Right. And that's really the ultimate step to this path. If self-growth is your focus, because it doesn't have to be. But it's that realization of, how the hell do I get out of my own way?
Yep. And to realize that you are in your own way. Like you were,
Yeah. And fixing the bamboozle.
Yep. And seeing, like,
we bamboozle ourselves.
And it's that belief system. And I know I keep saying that, but I can't, it just is so, now that I go through that and I keep seeing with other people, the belief system, you're shedding it, and it's scary. And that's why I have an index card, one of my many, like I said, it says, you are safe. You are safe. And I do the hard, all that kind of stuff. Be kind to yourself. Step into the flow of the universe. All that stuff sounds great. But again, human getting in the way.
Right.
So it's important that we have people, support systems such as this, that we can reach out and say, I'm having a rough time. And it doesn't have to be, but it's so important spiritually, because so many people, and we talked about this before, religious, spiritual. My mom said, I don't know why you need to be a spiritual coach. Just tell people to accept Jesus. Well, there's one stream of, revenue I don't have, Mom, thanks. But it's just so important. People don't know. And I think that's because she doesn't want to do that. That's a bad, prideful thing. But I think it's so important to find that purpose and get aligned, because you will be happier. You really will be. And you'll attract the people, you talk about manifestations and all that, but you'll attract that, and you'll reach out and say, I need that, and be vulnerable.
Talking about this journey into self-awareness, because that's kind of what this thread of our conversations become. One, you were talking about earlier about the anxiety that you deal with, and I have anxiety really bad. And it's a reaction to everything always going wrong. And a lot of instability. It's just, that's kind of one of the causes for it. But one of the things that I was thinking about was when we start going through transformations, spiritual transformations, leveling up, however you want to call it, we go through minor meltdowns.
Yes.
We have to shed, like you were saying, we have to shed emotion. We have to shed stress. We have to shed ideas. Some people, it puts them in a hospital for a couple days. And then when they come out, 4 days later, they find out that, oh, why am I interested in that book? And they pick up their first pagan book. And then they start getting interested, or they're already down this path and they're going through something, and they've been doing a lot of meditation, a lot of heavy work, and they're really getting there. And then all of a sudden things just kind of go wonky. It's a thing that happens that a lot of people have no idea happens, because nobody talks about it. That when you level up, you kind of disconnect for a little bit and then readjust when you reconnect.
I think it's because you're grieving. I really do, because what I was feeling was grief, and I didn't know where this sadness. There was some anger, but it was mostly sadness. And that's when I was, I was going through, and I was walking every day, and I went and did yoga in the park, and I got an area where it's beautiful, but I could cry and do yoga, and not many people would be like, oh my God, what is crazy lady crying doing yoga? But so I texted my friend, and that's when she said, look, you are grieving, you're shedding, you're grieving your compliant self. And there was so much grief, because I realized how much I played into it. I embraced the victim. I embraced no boundary. I just did so much to be the good person to fit in the box, even though I wasn't. And they kept trying to stuff me back in, and I let them. And I was sad about it, that why would people do that? I'm a good person. And, I'm helpful. But so I think a lot of it is that for me, it was seeing that, going inside. And like you said, I was at a breakdown, which is what you were talking about. You're at that point because your soul, your higher self, whatever you will believe it is, mentally, whatever, is saying, you have got to stop shoving me aside. You're miserable. I am you. We got to be friends. But to the point where, again, I almost had a breakdown. I probably would have been in the hospital, because I just couldn't keep my arms around it. And you know what? I didn't have to, but I didn't know that. I didn't know that. So I went through that grief process.
Yeah.
I reached out a lot. I did the shadow work through sound therapy, through someone taking me, trying to connect me, doing a lot of work with my inner child, things like that, that we kind of alluded to before. But you have to go, you have to go inward. Your soul sucks you there, because if you don't do that, you're gone. You're gone, you know?
Yep. Yep. And the hardest part is realizing what's going on. And
It's
then
so much emotion.
being lucky enough to figure out in transition how to deal with it.
Now, it sounds
You
like
don't
you went
always get it
through
right
it.
your first couple times. I'm sorry?
Do you sound like you've gone through it? Did you have support system that you relied on?
I have gone through it a couple of different times. I have gone through a lot of supports systems and things like that.
That's why I mentioned a support system, because I was able to, as I was going through that, even a woman that had gone to my first art therapy and sound therapy, we made such a connection. I messaged her on Facebook, like, I know that we talked after. I'm not a stalker, but I am going through something. I need someone to walk with me. And that really is the exact phrase. And she was great. She was like, go outside, try to do something.
Awesome.
And then we did some shadow work later together. But you have to be able to have those people that I could, boom, connect with. Oh, it just, I mean, because obviously you have to know how to cope. But when you're going through that, I was a crazy person that day. I was all over the place, shutting down, trying to open up, being mad, being so sad. So being able to have someone walk with you, that is to then get to the point where you're okay, is so important.
Yoga. I had a gentleman on not long ago who is very much into yoga, and he is very meditation focused. Tell me about the two styles of yoga you teach.
Well, right now, really, it's the Hatha yoga is just more fundamentals, where you do the sun salutations and you do the poses. And I like to have the themes. The sequences that I wrote for my certification were about the chakras, because I feel very connected to that. And obviously, hearing my transition, trying to align those has been very important. So, and then there's Vinyasa, which is the flow, and it's the Hatha, you hold longer, the poses, than the flow is less. It's like 3 to 4 breaths. So the Hatha is more meditation, mind, body focus. So you get deeper into that and you connect more, because for me, sometimes it's just because I'm in pain. You're just trying to,
I totally understand.
But that's important for my anxiety, because then I run my physical body. I don't want to say ragged, because I don't punish myself like I used to. But I really let my body do what it needs to do, because I want to honor that as well. I know I've been saying that a lot, but I really want to allow it, because I don't want to be one of those people where I'm 50, I shouldn't do that. Or I'm 60. I'm going to do it as long as my body lets me. And that's important, again, to connect and help my anxiety, and to be able to live, clear all that stuff. Because obviously in the short time that we've been, you know that there's a lot that goes on in my head. So, that may be part of anxiety too. So so I tend to like to really have themes, because when I then do it myself, and then when I instruct, I want to be able to bring you back to that, and not only say, hey, this is the chakra, it's orange, it's the sacral chakra, this is what it connects to. I want to be able to say to you, as you're going through your practice, we're going to talk about self-compassion. Where, let's not worry about how we look, our alignment. Let's feel how it's making our body. That to me is a deeper thing. And I would like to do the more restorative. I feel called to that, because you hold those poses but it's different. It's a lot of the mat work, but it really is helping injuries, and really helping get that deeper mind-body connection. And that's really what I like to, is really leading through that kind of meditation, because it's helped me with my anxiety, and my son with his depression. Can you hear me okay?
Okay, now you're back. You went away. Apparently you can't hear me now.
I can now.
I heard
just
you
lost
go.
ya.
Can you hear me now?
Okay. Did you hear any of that?
It'll catch up in a second.